Good morning. All right, we're going to finish up our book, Go Fly a Kite, Ben Franklin, starting with chapter 7. Ben in business. By 1729, when he was 23 years old, Ben Franklin finally owned a printing business. He had a press and a newspaper. Ben also sold pens, paper, ink, maps, tea, coffee, groceries, books, and soap made by his father. Ben was the first bookseller outside of Boston. Ben advertised his goods in his newspaper, and more people came to his shop. Ben had more good news. Deborah's husband had left her, and now she could marry Ben. On September 1st, 1730, Deborah became Ben's wife. Ben had made a good choice. Deborah was as hardworking as Ben, and as determined as Ben to be successful. Soon she was helping in the shop. She sewed pamphlet pages together. She served customers. She cooked simple, inexpensive meals. Ben and Deborah had 3 children, William, Francis, and Sally. Unfortunately, Francis died of smallpox when he was 4 years old. 36 years after Francis died, Ben said, "To this day, I cannot think of Francis without a sigh." Ben and Deborah worked very hard. Within 2 years of their marriage, they did not owe a single penny to anyone. Ben Franklin was known around Philadelphia as a hardworking, pleasant young man with a fine future. Ben enjoyed the printing business. He met people, talked with them, and found out their thoughts. Ben invited 11 eager young men like himself to get together on Friday evenings to share ideas. The men asked questions, solved business problems, and thought about how they could improve their lives. Ben called his club the Junto. Ben wanted more books as usual. He had an idea. What if all the members of the Junto shared their books with one another? Ben wondered. The Junto members agreed, and Ben had more books to read. A year later, Ben improved his idea. He started a library for everyone in Philadelphia. To join, you had to pay money, which was used to buy books. This was called a subscription library. 50 people joined, and a book order was sent to London. In October 1731, when Ben was 25 years old, the library opened. People in other towns learned of Ben's library and began their own. Ben's was the first subscription library in America, but soon there were dozens. Ben knew not everyone could afford to join his library, so he had another idea. He would publish a small, cheap book called an almanac. Ben's almanac would be packed with information, calendars, weather predictions, jokes, words of wisdom, and funny thoughts. Ben decided to write the almanac under a different name. In Boston, he had been known as Silence Dogood. In Philadelphia, he would be Poor Richard. In December 1732, when Ben was 26 years old, Poor Richard's almanac was published for the first time. Poor Richard was an immediate hit. People laughed at his jokes. They chuckled at his problems with his proud wife. They thought about his wise sayings like haste makes waste, and the cat in gloves catches no mice. Ben's almanac became popular throughout the 13 American colonies. His words were enjoyed as far as France, where Poor Richard was known as Bonhomme Richard. Ben published his almanac until 1758. It was a bestseller everywhere. Only the Bible sold more copies. Poor Richard made Ben Franklin a rich man. Chapter 8. Ben flies a kite and changes the world. Ben's thoughts turned to improving life in Philadelphia. Ben always believed in doing good for others. Through his newspaper and friends, Ben worked to make Philadelphia a safer, cleaner, nicer place to live. Ben didn't like the dusty, dirty streets of Philadelphia, so he worked to get them paved with cobblestones. At night, it was too dark to safely go around town, so Ben worked to get street lights. Fire was a great danger in Philadelphia because so many buildings were made out of wood. In 1736, Ben organized Philadelphia's first fire department. Soon, other fire groups were organized. Ben organized watchmen to protect people and homes at night. He worked to create the first hospital in America. He remembered how expensive it had been to go to school when he was a boy, so Ben began a free school. He also began a college. Today, this college is the University of Pennsylvania. Philadelphia was a much nicer town now, thanks to Ben. Ben also had ideas on how to improve life at home. Fireplaces smoked too much, burned too much wood, and did not give off much heat. Ben invented a stove that burned less wood, sent hot air into a room to make it warmer, and sent smoke up the chimney. The stove was called the Franklin stove. Ben gave his idea away so everyone's lives would be better. Ben did so well with his printing business that he decided to retire. In 1748, when he was 42 years old, Ben sold his business. He wanted to use his time to make the world a better place and to read, study, and make experiments. As Ben wrote in Poor Richard's Almanac, lost time is never found again. Ben had always been curious. He became very interested in electricity. At this time, electrical sparks were played with for entertainment. Tricks were performed. Sparks were pulled out of people's ears. Ben even tried to cook a turkey with electricity from a battery. The electrical shock was so strong that it knocked Ben out before he could cook his turkey. Ben thought there was more to electricity than just games. He wondered if lightning and electricity were the same. Lightning was a major problem for people because it hit their wooden homes and burned them down. Ben had an idea. He thought that if a person put a metal rod on his house, lightning would hit the rod and travel into the ground. The house would not burn down. Ben didn't try his rod idea, but he told other scientists about it. Ben remembered his boyhood days when he flew kites. What if he flew a kite during a thunderstorm? Lightning would hit the kite and travel down the string where he could feel it. Was lightning really electricity? Ben wondered. In September 1752, Ben and his son William flew a kite during a thunderstorm. The kite danced at the end of a long string. A key dangled at the end Ben held. Lightning crashed. Thunder boomed. Suddenly, Ben saw loose threads on the string standing up, a sign of electricity. Ben held his knuckle out to the key. A brilliant spark leaped from the key to Ben's hand. Electricity. Ben had proven that lightning was electricity, and he was incredibly lucky because he could have easily been killed by the lightning. Ben decided to test his idea about lightning rods attached to houses. Ben didn't know this, but 6 months before, a French scientist had already tried Ben's lightning rod idea, and it had worked. Do not try this at home. Ben attached a lightning rod to his own home. Soon other people did the same thing. Today, lightning rods are used on buildings worldwide to protect them from lightning. As usual, Ben gave his valuable idea away. Ben's fame as the tamer of lightning spread throughout the colonies. Harvard College and Yale College honored Ben with degrees. People in Europe were fascinated with Ben's discovery. In November 1753, when he was 47 years old, Ben was given the Copley Medal, the highest scientific award in the world. Ben Franklin had made history, but there was still much more history for him to make. Chapter 9. Ben becomes famous. In 1753, Ben was named Postmaster General of the 13 American colonies. It was his job to make sure that the mail reached each colony. But the roads were rough and no one was sure how far it was between cities. Ben invented the odometer, which he attached to his carriage wheel. As the wheel turned, the odometer measured how far the carriage had traveled. Ben visited each colony with his new odometer. He now knew exactly how far it was between cities. Ben was one of the few people who had ever visited each of the 13 colonies. He met people and heard their complaints. Ben Franklin knew America and Americans better than anyone else. Ben was very popular in Pennsylvania. People knew he could solve difficult problems, so they elected him to the Pennsylvania Assembly. There, Ben could help run the colony. But the most important decisions about the Pennsylvania colony were being made in London. Ben was asked to go to England to help solve a tax problem. In 1757, at age 51, Ben sailed to London again. Ben was pleased to be back in England, where he had spent 18 enjoyable months when he was younger. Now he was famous. People everywhere wanted to meet the man who had tamed lightning. Ben was invited to parties and dinners. Scientists wanted to discuss his ideas and inventions. In Edinburgh, Scotland, Ben was given a Doctor of Laws degree by Edinburgh University. Now he was Dr. Benjamin Franklin. Even with all the attention, Ben did not forget his work on getting the tax laws changed, but it took him 5 years. In 1762, Ben returned home to Philadelphia. Ben planned to rest, read, think, invent, and be with his family. Events in America and England would soon change Ben's plans. Other colonies were upset about the taxes the English placed on them. The English believed they could control the American colonies. England was 3,000 miles away. Americans felt that decisions involving them should be made in America, especially decisions about taxes. In 1764, Ben returned to England to help solve these problems.